across. I see from Kenya, Nairobi, Ghana, South Africa. Welcome to everyone to our Game Changer series, where we have some esteemed panelists who will be taking us through a discussion on supply chain management professionalization and asking the question, is there a need for Africa to have a standard teaching curriculum? Before we get into the session, I would just like to share some of the housekeeping rules. I know that there are a lot of people who have joined us before, but just as a reminder in terms of our housekeeping rules, we will ask that as you, during the meeting, if you could please put yourselves on mute so that the speakers and the people, the panelists can have a discussion. You are welcome to ask questions or make comments in the chat box. We have our very able Vinolia who will be looking at that chat box, and I will also have a look at it during the presentations. And then at the end of the presentations and discussion, we will then open the floor for questions where you're more than welcome to take yourselves off mute to ask your questions, and we'll also ask the questions to the panelists that have been left in the chat box. I noticed, secondly, I'd just like to advise that we are currently recording this session. It's currently live on Facebook. So just to be aware that this session is being recorded. Having shared the ground rules, I realized that I did not introduce myself. My name is Dr. Anand. I am with the African Institute of Supply Chain Research, and I will be hosting this Game Changer series this afternoon. It is normally, we have about an hour and a half for the session. So I will invite you to, they do say, sit back and relax and enjoy the session that we're going to be having this afternoon. As I indicated, the topic for today is supply chain management professionalization. And we have three esteemed panelists who are going to be answering the question, is there a need for Africa to have a standard teaching curriculum? And they will be really talking about aspects of supply chain management professionalization. It has really been a topic, as we see in the media, we see with the COVID and all the emergency procurement that happened, and our colleagues in the profession, we've really seen the need for professionalization and having a professional body, and they will really be speaking to these aspects of that. And we're fortunate that the panelists that we have are from the three different corners of Africa, namely Sarie Homan, who's from South Africa. We have, who I will introduce, and then I will also introduce the other two panelists and also say where they are from. So the first panelist is Sarie. I think in the Southern African space, if you don't know Sarie, I will begin to wonder if you are a supply chain management professional, because Sarie is a big name in the SCM space and in the professional body space. She is head of SIP South Africa, and she's head of the professional body aspects of that, and quite a big advocate in terms of professionalization. Her main objective is really in terms of elevating the profile of procurement and supply in Southern Africa by driving the standards and professional agenda, which she does very well. She looks in terms of strengthening stakeholder relationships and really is a key and her key focus, and she collaborates with both employers, education providers and professionals to improve accessible pathways to professional recognition for the benefit of the procurement and supply chain profession. Over the past 25 years, Sarie has worked in various roles within multinational corporates and has really a well-rounded experience in terms of the business area, especially focusing on procurement and supply chain management. And as I said to you, she's currently at the head of SIPS, South Africa professional body. She holds multiple academic qualifications, including an MBA from Gibson's University of Pretoria here in South Africa. So as you can see, just the introduction of Sarie, that we are going to have a very interesting discussion with regards to professionalization. We are also really fortunate to have a second speaker, who is Reverend Charles Malack Oloo. And here we have a depth of knowledge and a wealth of experience within procurement. I'm not going to say when he started working in procurement, because then I'm going to have you all calculating his age. But what I would like to say is that he really has a vast experience in the area. And he has extensive experience in procurement within, I'd say, the humanitarian sector. He's worked within UNICEF, wildlife conservationists, humanitarian relief support organizations, and in UN peacekeeping, where he retired as the CPO in 2016. Having retired as a CPO, he did not end and not continue to participate in procurement, but has really worked in quite a few African countries, including Sudan, Ivory Coast, Liberia, and he holds a BSc in Business Administration and an MBA in Strategic Management. He's presently a doctoral candidate for Operations Management at the University of Nairobi, and also Supply Chain Management at the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology in Kenya. I did indicate that we have the different corners of the continent represented, and the Reverend is currently in Kenya, and he'll be bringing in his vast experience in terms of procurement and professionalization from bringing in what happens in Eastern Africa to the discussion that we'll be having. The final panelist, who is currently based in Ghana. So now we have the West Coast represented. And that is Mr. Simon Annan, and he's also a doctoral candidate at Cranford University in the UK. He's a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Procurement and Supply. He holds a master's in business administration degree in strategic and project management from the Paris Graduate School of Management in France. Also, as I indicated, he is a fellow. He's also a Chartered Institute Logistics and Transport. He's also has a certification as a project management consultant. And he really has extensive qualifications. I'll call it black belt in procurement and supply chain. He's also have quite a wealth of experience in terms of various sectors, all within head of procurement in various organizations, which include Standard Chartered Bank, Eco Bank. So really a wealth of experience that he has, and currently, he's a procurement consultant for the Public Finance Management Reform Project under the Ministry of Finance, which is a World Bank financed project. So as I said, we have three really esteemed presenters who are going to be having a discussion in terms of supply chain professionalization. With that extensive introduction, I am then going to hand over firstly to Sarie, as each of the panelists will just introduce the topic and just to stimulate the debate. So I will then hand over to Sarie, who will then lead the discussion for the afternoon. Thank you very much. Sarie?
Good afternoon, colleagues, and for those in other time zones, it's a privilege. I hope you are safe and well. And thank you to Dr. Nteta and the ISCAR Institute and colleagues allowing me to contribute. I am forever a student, so yes, for me it's exciting to see the path we are on, and I'll try and keep it short and rather allow more time for discussions and questions. And also thank you for my fellow presenters. It's a privilege to meet you and have you as part of this. I think it will be a very rich session. So Venolia, you can proceed. Thank you to the, I'm guessing, second slide. All right, so in my scope today, we kind of divided and conquered, say, what do we think about certain things? And then we can share our thoughts on that and discuss it further. And two aspects that I delved into further is supply chain management, the profession, and what should be or constitute the attributes of a supply chain management professional. We can talk about this for a day on its own, but I'll try and keep it short. Thank you, Venolia. Okay, so for me, always is to understand the context of things and why are we asking these questions and where are we at today? Why should we bother about supply chain management being professionalized? And having the look at the state we are in, and I believe it's none of it is news to us on the effect corruption has on the world and on sub-Saharan Africa. And the latest corruption percentage index that Transparency International published in 2020 was actually shocking, that in sub-Saharan Africa, we scored an average of 32 out of 100. Now, obviously, there are the good stories, like Botswana is one of the leaders in Africa, Mauritius, and so forth. And then the other ones, and Seychelles, as you can see, Cabo Verde, I'll have to find out where that is. And then the really concerning countries, which we're well aware of. And then we've got South Africa and all the other countries like in between, which, I mean, if you're not even over 50, where does this leave our population, our economies, our children's futures? And this is just almost escalating because now we've got Sustainable Development Goals 2030. They're already the Agenda 2063, which is the African Union transformation plan for inclusive growth and sustainable development. But at the rate we're going, it's like, yeah, it looks fantastic on paper, but talk is cheap. How are we going to actually do this? You can go on, thanks. Okay, so another step back on the bigger picture of, okay, we've got supply chain management. And for me, and I think we all would acknowledge that supply chain management, procurement, and whatever aspects affect things either impacts or is impacted by these drivers. Now, these drivers of economic growth was based on research on emerging countries that really did spectacularly well in turning around the economies towards growth, inclusion, almost growing the middle class. And these were Chile, South Korea, there are quite a few. So Singapore, it was a global study, just to say, are there commonalities? And if these countries do certain things right, will this support the growth of an economy and job creation and so forth? And obviously, one of these was access to improving education. And this links up with our topic today of competency frameworks, professionalization, because it's all interconnected. High rate of savings is linked to the individuals, the population, households, as well as the government. And if people learn to save, and I think Ghana is also a very good success story you have about incentivizing people to save and reduce their spend. Also, ensuring healthcare. Now, COVID, let me not go there, about the impact of spending or corruption based in healthcare supplies, not only in South Africa, it was worldwide. There were incidents of systems falling apart, corruption, price inflation, and so forth. I've touched on education, and I'll expand on that on the next slide. Then we've got economic openness. How easy is it to trade with us and with the country? Is it difficult? Can we trade in other continents, neighboring countries? And obviously, logistics is a key part of this, logistics and transport. How do we send and receive goods? And a favorable demographic structure. Do we have a population to continue growing an economy? Links up with diversity, inclusion, and also education, that we have the right skills in a country and a continent to move forward and grow an economy. And then obviously, very, very significant is countries need to have stable policy environments with effective institutions that are held accountable for their mandate. And yes, we've got good stories and bad stories and examples about that, not just in Africa, globally. So this is currently, I know in South Africa context, very, it's a field that's undergoing lots of drive and attention and change in the regulatory field of SAQA, about standardizing things, and also global conventions about recognition of prior learning, that we have a talent exchange, that we can recognize the knowledge and skills of other students and scholars from other countries, and to our benefit in this country. But there's a system and framework required for that, which is obviously very complex. I'm not touching on that further today. So Vinola, you can move on to the next one. Thank you. So about this access to improving education, as I've mentioned. Now this I found very interesting on the maturity levels of, and this was based on a survey done by Gastel and Branco, and I got this from a consultancy, just all credit to them, Kiwi consultants in education. And where we are at, and for me it was significant to realize that in South Africa, actually, our qualification framework is quite mature and developed and comparable with global best practices. And what we do right, we share with other countries that can also take what works for them and adopt it to their local context. And that for me was like, yes, if we want to spend time and energy currently on competency frameworks, I think this is a good place to be. Lots of respect and recognition given to all the other countries, and those that obviously, Nigeria did not respond, but then these are specific countries. So I'm working with what I've got here. I'm not saying one is better than the other. And there's lots of frameworks. When we did a research with the Interim Supply Chain Management Council that was funded by the German Development Corporation in partnership with National Treasury to explore what is good in South Africa, for instance. What do our supply chain management professionals need to know at a certain level in order to be capable in doing their work properly, being professionals? And lots of extensive benchmarking exercise was done and study was done to compare different frameworks out there in the world, as you can see in the right text pane. And based on that, there was a commonality defined, and in consultation with many stakeholders to come to some sort of agreement of, okay, these are identified as critical skills, knowledge, that a person would require at a certain level. And that is something that obviously doesn't happen overnight, is in progress, but at least there's lots we can learn from global and local. And that's where we have it's important to have a global approach, because you're not living in islands. It's adopting global best practices and adapting it in a way that it's efficient in our context, in our country, and aligning policies with that to support that, or then creating policies for that. And then these would be creating standards for our professionals and those in supply chain management field, similar to all the other regulatory councils we are used to and have known for many years: finance, health sector, engineering, and so forth. So this is where we're aiming towards. Vanola, you can move on. Okay, so is supply chain management a profession? It absolutely is. I think it was just never recognized, which is actually quite ironic if you think of the importance and impact of it. It used to be finance, and if you can, you know, what they call them, bean counters, all respect to your accountants, with supply chain management is vastly complex. And you will know that you can't just put it in one little box. There's various aspects of it, the whole procurement supply chain, or procurement cycle, and then logistics and so forth, warehousing, distribution, and so forth. So each in those fields are almost a speciality in a way, falling under the supply chain management banner. And yes, we can never know it all. That's why we collaborating with all knowledgeable stakeholders to say, what would work, because you know, to sit in a silo doesn't help anyone. It's about sharing best practices, knowledge, and then using that as a basis of a high standard then that you can implement and manage and continuously improve. And you'll see, I'm not going to read what's on the slide about what are the benefits of professionalization. And with the speciality, study was done in 2017 in the public sector in South Africa. And the level of knowledge, there was a massive gap identified that, you know, about 20% of procurement or supply chain or anyone involved in public procurement had no background or knowledge on how to do their work efficiently. So when we talk about corruption and defects within the public procurement system, the question is obviously, is that the fault of the people? Was that intentional? Or is that just a lack of knowledge and skills? And is it a capacity building challenge, or is it both? And I firmly believe that with professionalization, has got always the underlying thread of integrity and ethical practices. And when people undergo the training in this field and are being educated in what they do and to be held accountable for that, then things will change. Obviously, it starts from the top, but yes, that's where a competency framework would be of massive benefit for not only South Africa, Africa and global, where we can say, what does good look like? The basic, the fundamentals of being a procurement and supply chain specialist or professional. And then you'll have your local contextual nuances that you'll adapt to. But at least you'll have a standard that we all agree on, is this is where you want to be. It doesn't help we hold back on old knowledge and frameworks 10 years old, as we know how fast moving this profession is and the fields. So it's working together, remaining relevant, and ensuring people are ready for what is ahead, including continuous professional development. Yes, let me stop there and let's move on to the next slide. Thanks. Okay, so another thing that was a question that was asked is, now what would be the attributes of a supply chain management professional? And I would answer, actually depends on which level you are at, depends how experienced you are, and lots of other aspects. Now I've incorporated a bit of well, my best first point of reference is the SIPS global standard, because it's based on global research. It's not based just on one regional country and so forth, and it's over all sectors. And then on taking that and what works for South Africa and Africa. And the commonalities pull through, even with the study we did with this Interim Supply Chain Management Council, came up, it delivered the same, I would say, content, just in a different structure, but at the end of the day, it was identified as key. And we have to remember that people don't just start at management level and procurement and supply chain. You need to have some knowledge and technical knowledge and a competency if you enter supply chain management at that level. And there are fundamentals that you will basically grow in from an administrative, operational, technical, and so forth, of which then, where it would be more your self-development might be when you're more junior in the field, it will start involving other individuals and then your teams, capacity building of your teams, and so forth. Then performance management on delivering on targets. How do you measure success in your organization? How do you deliver value? Not just by savings, there's other things as well. Sustainable development obviously is very critical these days. And processes. Do we have the processes in place to manage key risk areas in a business? And do we know how to do this? Have we been educated in that? And then obviously understanding the infrastructure on what is the position and influences for your organization or commodity, and how does it influence you, the external environment, the volatility we see is going on in the world, and the risk management going along with it, and obviously a fourth industrial revolution with technology, AI, and so forth, optimizing it to rather use your talent for analytical and almost advanced thinking skills instead of just automated like functions that can be invested in technology. So that is literally in a nutshell. I've put the sources at the bottom of the slide if you want to explore, because it goes into extreme detail on exactly what do you need to be able to do and demonstrate and apply at certain levels on each of these pillars and subcategories, I would say. Yes, so we can move on, Vanolia. I think I'm almost done. Yep. And yes, I don't want to step on toes. I'll leave that to our next speaker. It was about the different types of learning. But in the field, we know this, you've got our formal learning, non-formal, which includes then your professional requirements, either being designated and continuous professional development and so forth, and then informal, but I'm not going to elaborate on that. So that's all from me. Hopefully I have not spoken too much. So thank you very much.
Right. Good afternoon, colleagues, and thanks for having me this afternoon to also share my view on the topic, supply chain professionalization. Is there a need for a standard teaching curriculum? And I would say yes, there is a need to have a standard teaching curriculum for Africa. And thanks to Sarie for giving us the global picture of what professionalization looks like. And I'll try and add up the few things that had been left out. So I'm going to look at the training requirement, and then besides the training, skills and attributes that supply chain professionals or managers should possess. But before I set the context, I think the topic that we are looking at is there a need to have a standard teaching curriculum? I would want to focus more on the word standard. Now, when we're talking about standard, and you will agree with me, that a standard would have to be established by law or custom. So we have to ask ourselves as professionals, do we have that standard teaching requirement or teaching curriculum among ourselves or within or across Africa? The big question is no. Why? Because the standard we're talking about has to conform to some kind of benchmark, some kind of general acceptability. And I'm happy that Sarie mentioned the SIPS global standard, which was put together by the work of academia and the industry. And that's one of the global standard that procurement and professional colleagues would have to look at it. Sorry. Sorry, I think I was on mute. Forgive me. All right, so let's go back venue. All right, so thank you very much for having me this afternoon. And sorry, I was on mute, so pardon me for that. Please, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. And you were not on mute. We could hear you.
Okay, all right. Okay, great. So then let me just continue from where I left. So I was talking about the fact that every standard that we are assumed or we are aware have to have some kind of general acceptability. And for us to be able to have professionalization agenda across Africa in the supply chain space, we should aspire to have that standard, which conforms to a global standard or a benchmark that we set out for ourselves. And this afternoon, the question I want to put forward is that who is a professional? And a professional, as we all know, and us, we all pride ourselves that I'm a professional and I belong to a professional body. So if you're a professional of SCM, then what it means that you belong to a professional body and you have attained a certification in that professional body. So all the professional bodies that we are aware and probably pride ourselves to be part of it have some level of certification. And this certification has to be obtained through a standard education and training. And this afternoon, I think it's our call, and one of the calls that I want to make is that is ASCA ready to take the role of establishing African Supply Chain Council, where we're looking at the standard that have been run or the curriculum that have been run in our institution. For instance, I just did a quick survey for about 8 universities in Ghana. And these 8 universities all are running supply chain related programs. Fortunately, or unfortunately, the programs actually differ because they have procurement and supply chain. They have logistics and supply chain. But I have also maintained that, and colleagues, as you all are aware, the supply chain encompasses procurement, logistics, warehouse operation, and stuff like that. So if you have a program which is called procurement and supply chain, what does it mean? What does it mean to us as professionals? And what does it mean to the people outside our profession? I think that inconsistency in even our program that we run in our academic space is also creating a problem. And for that matter, we need to have that professional standard that cuts across and let people also aware that this is what supply chain actually stand for. So there's also this connection actually between even the industry knowledge and an academic knowledge. Please move on. So we're looking at the characteristics that when someone calls himself a professional supply chain manager should have. And Sarie has talked about ethics. Of course, ethical practices is the bedrock of our profession. We need to be ethical. And when we talk of ethical, the ethic and integrity is doing things that nobody is watching you. And I've also maintained that in Africa, we can move forward when we stop thinking that somebody is looking at our shoulder. We have to be ethical in whatever we are doing. And that's one of the characteristics of a professional supply chain manager. Another characteristic is the impartiality and transparency. And Sarie has already spoken about the professionalism. And all these things come together to ensure that as professionals, we are actually subject to a straight code of conduct that are rigorous, ethical, and as well as obligatory. Let's move on, please. Now, the training that is required, and Sarie, as I said, has spoken about the training, formal, informal, and the rest. Now, I would want to talk about the fact that obtaining academic degrees and obtaining academic qualification does not make you a professional. We have institutions that have been mandated to run a professional program. And I was having a debate yesterday and said, okay, if you have LLM, LLB, does it make that person a lawyer? No, it has to go through some kind of certification, which is run by the professional body. So as Africans, for us to be able to imbibe on our professionalism in the supply chain space, we need to now look at the programs that international professional bodies are running, such as SIPS, which we've talked about it already, or SILF, and also the regional and national professional programs. Ghana, we have what we call GIPS, the Ghana Institute of Professional Procurement and Supply. We have the Chartered Institute of Supply Chain Management. All these institutions are running programs. The problem is that these professional programs that they are running is actually not in sync with the industry. And that's what we have to look at it. That's why I'm charging the ISCA that we take a leading role in establishing what we call the Africa Supply Chain Management Council, where we're looking at the professionalization, standardization of even the curriculum that have been run in the universities or in academic institutions, as well as the professional institution. If you look at some of the syllables that have been run by the international body, you ask yourself, is it localized? Can it be applied holistically into our environment? For instance, if you go through a program like SILT or SIPS, very good program, but the point is that as soon as you finish, Ghana, about 70% of our procurement is done in the public space. Meanwhile, there's no subject or there's no element of public procurement in that syllabus. Can the regional and national procurement professional institutions or supply chain institutions take up those local programs and embed in their syllabus? And I'm very sure probably other countries are doing it, but Ghana is something that we are looking at. Are we also having an integrated approach in training where we bring the academic and industry together so that we have a professionalization agenda which is cut for purpose, which is fit for purpose for Africa as a continent? Go ahead, please. All right, so we're talking about the skills and abilities of a procurement professionals. Please move on. So what are the skills that are required as a procurement professional? And this afternoon, as I indicated earlier, there are so many skills and abilities that supply chain professionals are supposed to have. I mean, it varies from the level in which you are in, either you are starting as your career, or you are the middle, or you are the apex of your career. But in all these space and all these levels, what is very important for us as professionals is to develop what we call the stakeholder management skills. Now, the stakeholder management skills is a skills which borders on people management and ensuring that you understand the business of the day. You understand your stakeholders, the stakeholders being the suppliers, stakeholders being the consumers, stakeholders being the customers. These are the stakeholders that we deal with. And how well do we know how to manage them? How do we understand their need? How do we communicate with them? And this is a skills that we need to have. And recently I read a survey which was conducted by Hague on the skills that is necessary for procurement supply chain professionals across the group. And one of the top skills that came out is the influencing skills, which is the people management skills or the stakeholder management skills. Now, the influencing skills is required for every professional supply chain manager to ensure that he's able to connect and is able to relate to all the stakeholders within and outside the organization. So be it an upstream a stakeholder or downstream stakeholder, we need to ensure that we deal with them to be able to achieve value for money and be able to bring on board the value we're talking about to our organization. So it's very key. The next slide, please. So I'm not going to go through this, but these are the drivers that, or the stakeholder tips that will drive more value. And we're saying that let's aim for more than just a seat, not aim for more than just a seat at a table, ensuring that whatever you are communicating, you're communicating clearly. You understand the business of the day. You understand finance. You understand engineering. You understand the language of the business. When you do that, then as a procurement professional, your contribution as a professional in an organization as well. Please let's move on. Sustainability and ethics, we've talked about it, but I think that it's very important for us to develop that skills. How do we ensure that we develop skills in ethics and we develop skills in sustainability? Most of the organizations, most of us actually see the importance of sustainability, but we are yet to master how to integrate the sustainability. We are yet to master how to integrate sustainability in our profitability element, in our people management, and in even the planet. How do we integrate those? How does your action or inaction, the decision that you make, the strategic decision that you make, actually impact on the larger community? And that is the skills that we need to develop as a supply chain professionals. And this afternoon, one of the calls that we make is that as supply chain professionals, let's try and ensure that we actually master to integrate the sustainability. But we'll be talking about it. Every day we talk about ethics, every day we talk about sustainability, but let's master the art of integrating the sustainability into our operation and for that matter, adding the value to an organization. Please go on. So definitely the ethics, as I said, borders on the things that we do in our space, in our corner, that nobody's looking at us. What borders on the abuse? Are we abusing the people or the suppliers that we deal with? Exploitation, human rights issues, bribery and corruption. These are the things that borders as procurement professionals. And the era of global uncertainty, it is likely and easy for us to even abuse the suppliers to get things that we're looking for. But as professionals, it is our duty to ensure that everything we do is cut for purpose and is more ethical and sustainable. The next slide, please. We've talked about risk management, which I'm not going to bore you with it, but how well do you know the risk that I inherit in your operation as a professional procurement person or supply chain person? Now, if you are able to analyze, you're able to assess, you're able to find mitigation factors, then you become relevant in an organization. And the call for professionalization in that organization will be felt. But if as a procurement supply chain professional, we know aware about how these risks are assessed, analyzed, and find mitigating solution, then the call for professionalization will not be achieved. But I am of the opinion that the risk management skills is what we require as procurement professionals to be able to excel and enhance the professionalization agenda that we're talking about. Next. Supply development program. I think it's one of the things that we think is not even part of our supply chain agenda. But this afternoon, I just want to re-emphasize that it's key. And Ghana has been battered by our lack of developing the suppliers. I mean, for the past 4 weeks, the cedi has depreciated over 20%. With 20% against the major trading currencies, the dollar and the pound. Why? Because as the global crisis continue to rage on, Ghana is not producing anything. We haven't been able to develop our local industry. We haven't been able to empower our local industry. So everything is imported. Everything, about 95 to 98 of our consumption is imported. At what point in time are you going to say stop? Let's look at our local industry and then develop our suppliers and enterprises to able to ensure that we are not being battered or we're not being suffered by this global crisis. All industries that are in Ghana are going through serious issues because we are not prepared for this economic crisis. I mean, beginning of the year, our fuel price was about 50 cents per liter. As I speak to you, it's about 1.3 dollar per liter. And for me, it's all about the fact that we have not been able to develop that skills on supply development issue. We haven't taken on board a conscious effort, a strategic and long-term effort in developing our local industry. And for that matter, we have been suffered, or we have been affected by what is going on globally. I'm sure some of the African countries like this, South Africa is very good in developing their local industry, but I think we need to learn more from ourselves and ensure that even within the regional sector, we have regional supply development initiatives and a program to empower our local industry and empower the enterprises that are around. So for me, as supply chain professional, one of the skills that you would require to be able to help the economy and help the organization that we work with is how we develop our local industry, how we embed the local content and then the local capacity into the things that we do. And when we do that, we'll have a continuous flow of input, and then we have a continuous flow of resources coming into the organization or coming into the company. Please, the last slide. And just to share with you how the perspective of the supply chain, supplier development programs, and it can be seen as direct or indirect, which calls for a certain level of investment, and we have to necessarily make an investment into our suppliers space to be able to generate, because when we grow our own, the level of import and money we exchange to buy these things will reduce. I mean, recently we all heard about Nigeria, where Dangote has Dangote has established oil refinery, and that oil refinery is going to feed Africa, Nigeria, and Africa. It has also established a factory and opened a factory for manufacturing of fertilizer. So right now that we have a problem from Russia, I think that factory is going to help us. And I think that the government and the organization must make a conscious effort to make an investment into the way we develop the suppliers. And it has to become part and parcel of supply chain profession going forward. So thank you very much, Dr. Teta. I think I'll end here and then leave it for my other colleague to continue.
Am I there now?
Yes, you are. We can hear you and we can see you. Thank you.
Oh, you can see. Okay, good. So I'm sitting in a, if you are seeing me, I'm in a class. I was teaching. So I said, no, there's the best place even to do this program. And I'm very thankful that we have to attack this area of supply chain management in terms of professionalism, curricula, and everything else. My role today is now to just have an overview about whether universities and professional organizations require standardized curriculum in the various functional areas of supply chain management. Yes, that will continue, that will be reviewed. And then also, is there any clear articulation and path across institutions, professional organizations, and in this continent of Africa? We could say no. From there, let me introduce myself. I've been in the profession, as it was mentioned, from 1973, and I'm still there up to now. One time I was a clerk, another time I was a manager, and all that. So when I'm teaching supply chain management, I'm proud that I have moved with it, and I have an overview to tell people what supply chain management is all about. So with 7 years thereabout, when I started working, when I'm 22 years, you know, how many years I've been there. So it's okay. Let us look at what is coming up in what my role is supposed to be in this discussion. So go to the next slide, please. Standardization of curriculum and career paths for supply chain management in Africa. That's our concern. And from our discussion today, these points should come out clearly, whether we need a standardized curriculum and whether it's necessary in various functional areas in supply chain management. And if it's so, for what purpose? Which are the roles that should be or has been played by the academic institutions? And which ones have been played by the professional bodies? Then how far can you address any gaps or challenges that can arise? Also, if career paths in supply chain management are well articulated, and if not, then what is the importance or need for articulation then? And which are the roles that should be or have been played by the academic institution? Which are the roles that should have been also been played by the professional bodies? And then we should also identify the gaps and deal with those linkages that would be missing. I'm going to talk from the background of East Africa and more particularly Kenya. I'm just very proud that one of our senior lecturers is also attending here, and I will tell you why it's important, and they're going to listen, and from other people also, that it's necessary to harmonize these areas on the curricula and also standardization and also articulation, and who is supposed to do that. So go to the next slide, please. Supply chain management is distinct, really. We have had the upstream taken care of by the procurement, operations, taken care of by warehouse and inventory control, through inbound logistics, downstream chains are done by outbound logistics. And these ones require some competencies and skills for decision making, effective operations, and efficient customer service mentioned by my other colleagues. But what's the purpose then? If they are harnessed together, then the organizational performance can improve. And if they're standardized through well-integrated curriculum, then it's good for us because that will address this idea of performance of these areas that we have really distinctly sectionalized or capitalized supply chain management as a profession. But by the way, what's a profession? What's curriculum? This refers to a planned sequence of instruction for specific instruction goals. Both, whether you are an institution which is a teaching institution or a professional body, you have to know where you are going with that. So why? Because those competencies that we need in supply chain management and also alongside the talents that come with the people who we are engaging must be. Somebody is interrupting. Anyway, so this it requires these competencies must be harmonized because we have the talents, we have the competencies that we require. We need to have knowledge, skills, and attributes of that profession so to understand it very well. So that's why we have various roles which should be played, especially one, the role of the government. The role of the government, they are the ones who allow or give accreditation or really approve universities. And these public institutions are also many consumers of supply chain management activities, especially through procurement mostly. As a government, a consumer has both roles of consumption and also accrediting those bodies that can, universities that handle these programs. Sorry, there's some misspellings here, but in Kenya, in Kenya, we are lucky that we have some national qualification authorities to guide partners, including the curriculum development authorities. So these ones can be reached to ensure if there's any disharmony. So these are available. The government was very careful to put this in place. And so if there's any hiccups, we can always reach up to them to see why we can harmonize and standardize the curriculum. How about the universities? The universities are governed by the Commission of Education in Kenya, but mostly these are run independent through the senates and all that. But also, in most cases, they are deemed independent, and they sometimes cannot accommodate other areas very comfortably. You have to make sure that you are careful, and you have to do that with the consultation. But there have been a standoff. I don't know why. The standoff is that the universities run their programs and they say, wait until we offload the students to you, and then take over, and then make sure they go through whatever you require of them. Go to the next one. Go to the next slide, yeah. So the problem we have is also from the universities, is where they have this procurement or supply chain, as it were. Somewhere other universities have departments like finance and accounting and the School of Business. In Kenya, we have 2 such universities. Others like have the Commerce Department and the Business and Economics. 3 universities do that in Kenya. Some of them have management science, 5 of them do that. And also the entrepreneurship and procurement, like Jomo Kenyatta as an example. But I want to say that when supply chain management was being considered in Kenya, we are lucky that Nairobi University, which started all that, had were looking at operational management side of the story. But they have done it very carefully, listen to every time. And although they shift to this department, they have remained to ensure that supply chain management is done properly. And I think with time, and now that we have other bodies we can also approach them, it will be okay. Universities like Jomo Kenyatta, they start from entrepreneurship side. And so they a department like entrepreneur and procurement as one. Some universities, and in Kenya, we had the human supply chain problems. And that's why some of them were really thinking of logistics as the main thing, because to movement of things here and there. But all the time we have room for where we can improve on that. And some of them now, as we see, offering different, the supply chain is being offered in different, using different names like, oh, you are going to qualify when you are in the department called procurement and logistics as an option. Some of them call them procurement, supply, and logistics together when they are under finance and commerce-oriented programs. So there are these hiccups which should be harmonized, you can see. But there is a trend of the university offering these programs skewed to one side, especially when they consider supply chain management. They don't give it a straight line program. They normally want you to do some 3 years, do option to specialize in supply chain management, which makes that students take so long to know if they can specialize in this one or come out and do something else because they are housed in different departments. Doing so means that the students can also be seduced to relieve of supply chain management and join other programs, and which is very easy. I noticed in another university where when they reach, they say, we don't have people who can also teach you about that. So please change something else. That is another problem that we have seen. So what's the way forward here now? We need a standardized curriculum, yes, to cover the foundational units and more so adequately. And as had been mentioned by my colleagues, ISCA has reached out to most of these universities, even to collaborate and say so that it can harmonize. They have still another chance to do so. And also supply chain management sometimes is being supervised by departments which don't understand, who don't even want to see that profession to grow. I don't know for what reasons, but I just say some of them. I've seen in one department where I have to struggle to tell them that please let me now finalize with my students and then you can take over somehow. But you see, that's a problem of standardization. Move on. Go back. Go back. Go back. Yes, there. One thing. Oh, go back again. Or go down. One slide more. Yes. IFP or puts national associations together. We have membership like in Kenya, we have KISIM and many more. They have only 44 in the whole world who have registered, but they are taking people to other countries who have established professional bodies to join them. But what is happening, they tried to standardize, to do some standardization of certain requirements, and that was only because of the profession. But they didn't go far to see how the curriculum can be addressed.
Profession, Darugo.
Somebody has now joined us from I don't know where, but it's okay. Henry, can you mute off so that we continue, please? We have not much time remaining. Now, so IPSM has tried, but then the role of professional bodies in Africa is still wanting. They have by CIPS, as we have heard, and CILT. CIPS had gone supply chain procurement, especially being highlighted. CILT has been logistics. But we need also an approach where this can be harmonized so that we are talking same language. So we ensure that the curriculum they can understand and functional areas are done better. This harmonization would also make sure that we form an African alliance, and has been mentioned that ICE can take a role, which is true. But there should also be a move for our key partners to clearly define the required curriculum, which is all inclusive instead of being run from this corner to the other one. Because what's there in logistics and what's there in supply chain in general, or what then procurement, that cannot be now, which can be called a supply chain proper. So that one, I know that gap can be closed, and we can work on that one. There are so many ways that those loopholes are creating hiccups, so that if we have a standardized program, then it means that our professionals will be standing alone to say that they are there. Because sometimes when you ask somebody, who are you? What are you doing? I'm a professional procurement person. I'm a professional, I don't know which one. But we don't have one common thing which says a professional supply chain person. I think we are avoiding that. And why? Just because there's no harmony. Go to the next one. Now, we need to also think about this career. The career articulation is very, very important for us, because a career is an individual's journey through learning, work, and other aspects of life. So we should have an aspect where we have career preparedness and readiness, preparing the students to acquire the necessary skills, and so that they can grow in their jobs. So career readiness is very, very important. So they need also to have the career information, which describes where they are going to. Most of these universities or these professional bodies, sometimes they don't have career mentorship, career counselors. They just get the students in and out. And I think KISIM in my country is trying now to come back and say, we have career mentorship program. Sometimes the career assessment, knowing what is required or not, and career counseling also to assess the people's interests, personality and values and skills is supposed to be there. The CSSMP defines supply chain management very well. It says that supply chain management encompasses the planning of all activities, as you can see there. And this planning aspect sometimes is not included in the career, in our curriculum, or even our training. And that's why when I look at what the SCORE model came up with in revision version 12, for example, they talk about the planning aspect as number one. They go to the sourcing, which is procurement, and making this processing of, put it together, delivery, logistics, return, and also the enabling environment where people can work and understand. So for me, we need to train people to move from one component, one functional area of supply chain management to the other without saying, oh, I was trained only to do public procurement or I was do inventory. No, we need an encompassing career path that you can move and change your roles depending on the assignment that are available. So that is important. Go to the next one. So from this ongoing, the career path in supply chain management should be well articulated, as you can see. So what is the purpose then? Is to create a confidence, preparedness, and competence. So we can also integration with other programs, other sort of disciplines. I was lucky to be in charge of Operational Societies of Africa from Pretoria, and I saw that operational research is giving us a way to make decisions. And operational management takes over to make sure that it's effective. The decisions are properly effective. Supply chain management comes to the end to make sure that there's effective delivery. But when you harmonize all this, supply chain is supposed to take the role of being on top so that when they are moving with the requirements, they know what to do and when. So articulation from the university level, their role should be is usually passive. They don't come, they don't say, they don't put it clearly. And therefore they create an atmosphere where they embrace supply chain management just as a career. They don't consider it that way. They don't create that belief that supply chain management, it should be a career. I think so. But then they have preference to others. One university where the dean is a finance guy, he told somebody off, don't bring this procurement supply chain management here because even themselves, they're thieves. They should not be bothering us and say, oh my God, is that how you understand this thing? So we shall move away from that and make everything on well. In Kenya, there was an effort by a group called Linking Industry with Academia. That project was financed by other stakeholders to ensure that the university understands also the industry. The industry is where these professionals are. We are not left out as professionals, as I've been highlighted. So the university should form collaborations for exchange programs, like for UNISA, whatever, so that we know where, if we need more, then that's how where we should go. Go to the next one. Now, professional bodies also have another role to do the articulation and career path in supply chain management. How? Most of them have been writing too much on CIPS. And I like the way the CIPS has been doing its job in Africa. I remember doing my diploma in 1979. And it is changing to accommodate, and all that. Those programs are very, very good. But most of the professional bodies now who are coming up in various countries, they are bent on commercialization only. They want to collect money because the CPD points must be earned. So they go and say, oh, we charge you for coming and things like that. So they have forgotten to negotiate to go back to where the roots come, that the university, who are preparing the 4 P's of things. 1, the principles, the fundamentals, laying the ground for supply chain management. 2, connecting these processes, the principles with the processes that go on in the industry. And also now, how to prepare to practice, but how to perfect them and become professional is their baby. But they normally don't do that. They only go and say, come for CPD points. And so that is more commercialization than really to develop the profession. So we should wake up, and somebody taking the lead. It has been suggested the mantle should be taken by ISCA or anybody. But I think ISCA is better placed because ISCA started it all, and ISCA is encompassing from the east, the north, and everybody else is there. So they should embrace, they should also now not just talk about public procurement only, because that's becoming too much. We need also other areas to be highlighted. They should also create regional alliances so that certain areas require more of the other. When you are in a place where they're fighting, you know, more logistics, where you have issue to do the service delivery procurement and things like that. So, but what's important is let us articulate our career path for people even to join in, and even if they will have problems with the internships, we can create room how we can do virtual internship and all that, because that could be another way that is missing. Go to the next one. Now, that is now saying, I've done my part, and also to come back to make sure that we want to ensure that the knowledge transfer is complete. The knowledge transfer in supply chain management is complete through the curriculum development, professional standards, and also those bodies which you have mentioned, which are playing the regulatory mechanisms or roles, are put together. So we need to have to talk to each other and make sure that our profession is protected, our profession is admired, and we move on right from the teaching, the classrooms, like the one where I'm sitting, to the field. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to all the presenters for that very insightful presentations that they all shared. You can already see from the comments in the chats that you really made people start to think and to have a lot of comment. Reverend Charles, I'd like to actually address the first question to yourself, seeing as you have, with the last speaker and your mic is still warm to be able to answer. We have Emmanuel, who has asked you to comment on a court order in Kenya, making it illegal for professional bodies to dictate or interfere with the curriculum offered at universities.
I think, I think Emmanuel is one of the people who are in the realm of this teaching. This is a groupage of all professions, not just supply chain management. It was that certain professions jumped in and went to court, but they didn't have an avenue to have a dialogue. So they went and the Commission of Education in Kenya was annoyed, and they just got annoyed, and because they instead of talking to the university, they went to court. And even me, I would get annoyed. But supply chain management, the good news is for us, it is going on well. The professional body is always on talking terms with people, inviting and it started from the treasury. And so it was not fair for a professional body to go to court without having reached to a mediation level. So it's true.
Thank you very much for that. I'm going to now go to a question that I think is a question and a comment which I would like the panelists just to consider, from Mike Manga, who actually says, in his interactions with senior fellow professionals in talent development and finance and audit, etc., he's really observed a lack of appreciation of SCM qualifications and SCM as a profession. And the discourse about SCM professionalization really appears to be happening among the converted. And he poses the question and says, should we not be having outreach initiatives to other professions as well in this regard? I will ask perhaps Sarie if she could maybe just comment on that, and maybe SIPS is doing something in terms of that outreach to other professions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Iyana, and Dr. Mike. It's good to have you online. Hope you're well. That's.
I'm fine, Sally. Thank you so much.
Good. Yes, I'm thinking, you know, each profession is so specialized in what they do. I'm not sure how it would benefit the elevation of supply chain management if we talk to them, unless it's to learn about best practices. But I find one thing that I became very aware of is that we don't sell ourselves well enough. We always ask for permission to sit at the table, and it's like you have to. The evidence speaks for itself when you deliver the results, and you're able to show it in a way that people from other divisions can understand how we communicate that and convey that value we're adding in whatever way the metrics are. So it's important to be able to measure what we do and the results of that, whether in whatever it is we are aiming to achieve, whether it's such supply development goals and so forth. So don't ask for permission. Go out and share this via social media, via reports. You know, obviously, credibility is important. It has to be validated. If it's financial related, the head of finance or whoever audits it for accuracy needs to sign it off and say, yes, wow. And that way, we gain respect and like, oh, we didn't know that. So we actually have to do a lot of education because people don't know what they don't know unless you show them this is actually, we do contract management and this is the value we've added or the savings we've incurred and so forth. So from a practical aspect, Dr. Mike, that's my viewpoint on it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Maybe I should just put a context to my question in terms of how this arose. Following on from my attendance of fellowship status, some colleagues in my Rotary Club saw this on LinkedIn, and one came up and asked me what this was all about. And this was coming from a senior partner in one of the top accounting firms, audit firms. And another colleague joined in the discussion, and I realized that I probably needed to give a talk. And so I did a presentation on supply chain management to my Rotary Club as internal guest speaker to the club. And it actually aroused a lot of professionals in other fields just took procurement as one of the tasks that were done within organizations, and that it wasn't a profession on its own or some career path that somebody can actually embark on. A few weeks ago, a fellow professional in talent management in Zimbabwe came up with a survey where they were asking recent graduates in terms of which fields they want to major. And a whole host of career paths were ascribed: marketing, finance, advertising, you name it. And there was no reference to supply chain. And I actually responded to that post to indicate the importance of supply chain management. So that is the background where I'm coming from, to then say, if other professionals within organizations, and not only in the public sector, but even in the private sector, have no appreciation, then they are not going to create those career paths for our professionals within those organizations. serve for a few organizations that have already, your blue chip companies that have already embraced procurement. So that's the background to that question. Thank you. I just thought I should share it.
Thank you, Doctor. Yes, that helps me get a better understanding of the context. Yes, awareness of what the designation means in general, not even FSIPs or fellow or a member, is people don't know what a designation is. I get every day inquiries about what level of qualification is MSIPs, and which means we have still got lots of work to do. I perceive us to be literally still in the starting blocks from a professionalization for supply chain management in Africa as such. Yeah, obviously we do detect with where SIPs has been much more visible and been around for 90 years in England. Obviously it's more mature and it's different context from ours. By us, actually the timing is brilliant. We keep on saying the time is now to ensure that we drive this forward, because this can make or break the rest of what's left of Africa. And it's quite a responsibility, and not one organization can do that or one individual. It's stakeholder engagement is what we're doing today with amazing collaborative work that ASCA is doing, and keeping politics out of it and say, what is our common goal is to advance the profession. And yes, and not one person is right or wrong. There's different challenges in every context. And the thing is, what will, if that kind of recognition is important, because I've got the same challenge in South Africa on driving employer-led demand. I would say up and down in South Africa that we're getting more nations, because those who have done it and have earned it understand the value of it and how that sets them apart from other colleagues who just might have a BCom degree. No discredit to any academia qualifications, but a professional qualification or affiliation. I mean, we know that we've got. I don't have to convince you. So it's that mindset of understanding what is out there, the different paths of career development, growing, academic versus and professional, and then being awarded a designation. And I keep on fighting or asking for that we have additional designations with SAQA, because MSIPs is not only globally awarded by Ofqual and recognized by SIPs, who holds a royal charter. In South Africa, we're also SAQA recognized with MSIPs being a registered designation. But I see the bulk is actually the younger ones, although the average age of our students is about 30 years old. So it's all working professionals who have got qualifications, workplace experience, and want to do whatever they're doing better, become professionals. And there's a huge gap we still have to fill. And that's why we, in the SIPs world, we're on the cusp of now, you're growing at such a pace, but your systems can't support it anymore. And we're now in the process of transformation in order to deliver on the future expectations. So currently, yes, we're in the midst of lots of changes in order to drive this forward in a sustainable way, and then expand further and be more present in our African countries, connect better. We're a very small team in Africa that has not done you any favors. And this has been highlighted more than once. COVID also didn't do us favors with regards of resources, but I would say we've come through that dip and we now up onwards. We've got brilliant leadership with all, I would say we're all on the same side, and let's talk, let's discuss. It's a journey, and let's see how we can, and we are working towards customizing and aligning. There's one thing that I came to realize. We say, yes, why don't SIPs adapt their stuff to us, to this country, that country? I think that would be not fair to, and it's not feasible, because if you've got a global standard, it's globally. It's recognized by, we've got input of 3,000 different professional and academics, industry specialists throughout the world. Now, to take that and just customize it in a country where I might have 1,000 students instead of 50,000 students, from our viewpoint, it's to understand that that's a complex thing to do. And success stories in Ghana, and I must say hats off that we've got more than one university there. What they did is they used the global standard as reference, and they brought in the local context. So you've got the standards there of global best practices. And then from a local context, I would say your legislation and so forth, also part of that qualification. So when they come out with that qualification, they're actually ready for the workplace as well. So, and that those are accredited degrees, but we need the buy-in of an educational institution to want to do that. And that's, depends on that institution. There's been a lot of challenges in many countries with that. So it's a slow turning wheel, but there's a lot of stakeholder engagement, and sometimes it's possible and sometimes not, but we always very eager to engage with other academic institutions to a SIPS global standard, but still it would be a competency framework relevant to Africa. Just my ideas. So I'll stop here. Thank you. Any other ideas?
Thank you very much for that, Sarie. I'm actually going to put Simon a little bit on the spot. Sarie did say that Ghana seems to have done a good job in terms of asking you to share your comments, but also incorporating the question from Peterson, where he says that I know that a standardized curriculum will ease credit transfer for students, but do you think that universities in certain countries will fail to address the unique market stakeholder needs, which are country specific? So if I can just ask if you can just give a context in terms of perhaps maybe Ghana did get it right in being able to bring in SIPs and the professionalization, and also bring in the stakeholders of industry into the fold, and what happens in Ghana.
Right, Doc, thank you very much. So I remember in 2014 that we embarked on this journey, and we, as much as possible, trying to link the industry to the academia. But in Ghana, we have a body regulating the professional institutions, and then we have a body regulating the academic institutions as well. So we approached them, and first of all, we try to ensure that if there's any disconnection between the two, how do we solve it? What is the understanding? And I agree with you. The people's understanding about supply chain is quite different. For instance, Ghana, it has been procurement. So if you talk about supply chain, people still think it's procurement. So the journey of linking the academia to industry is, as I said, started at that level. Then we realized that why don't we have universities who are willing to partner with SIPs for us to even get the SIPs accreditation? And we worked with the University of Cape Coast and then the University of Science and Technology. We looked at their syllables and then made input locally into it and sent it to Amanda, SIP's office, and they looked at it. Fortunately, they accredited it and confirmed that it's actually in line with SIP's levels, and we have incorporated the local content. As I said for my submission, Ghana government owes about 70% of our procurement spend. And for that matter, most of the procurement that we do are public related procurement. So if you finished MSc and you don't understand procurement, or you don't understand public procurement, then you have not done anything. So that is one aspect that we actually talked about and then incorporated into the program or the syllabus, which SIPs agreed and approved. and I think is working well. And because of that, anybody who finished that program gets a free accreditation of membership from SIPS. So SIPS actually has accredited those two institutions, and I agree with Sarie. It has not come easily, but as I said, slow progress is better than no progress. We have tried to ensure that these two universities actually their syllables are in line with SIPS syllables and incorporating the local. And we are also trying to ensure that other universities come on board. But as I said, it hasn't been easy. Now to answer the other, then ensure that we work together to achieve a common goal. And for that matter, if there are any differences, as I said, the courses that we are churning out should be an integrated program. We cannot continue to have academians actually doing their own thing and then having industries all do their own thing. And I agree with Charles. If it happens like that, people who are coming into the profession are actually confused. We have done similar survey where we ask students, what kind of profession do you want to have, or what kind of profession do you want to chart in the future? And supply chain is totally out. What we got was even procurement. Why procurement? Because a lot of people hear about procurement and the option here and there in government, and it has come about as procurement. They hear that some people are in procurement and they are making money. I mean, funny. Students looking, willing to have, they don't even understand. Now, another thing we are doing, Scania, is trying to bring that idea into the second cycle institution. And myself and Professor Boateng had started talking to the Minister of Education. Can we have a subject or a program at the secondary school level or the high school level, ensuring that at least people begin to understand what supply chain is all about, what strategic sourcing is all about, so that when they're even charting their career or progressing on their career, know that from this high school, I can go and do program in supply chain at the university level, but it's not there. When you take our levels of curriculum at the high school level, we have the economics, we have geography, we have science, we have this and that. By procurement and supply chain is missing. And that is a project that we have started looking at it. And I think that if it's something that we roll out across Africa, students will understand and even appreciate the supply chain at that senior, the high school level before they even get to university. And for me, that collaboration is very important, and we have to make sure that it happens for us to be able to chart the professionalization agenda we are all talking about. And as I said, ASCA should take the leading role, because as we speak, we don't have any regional body who is passionate, like ASCA is passionate about supply chain issues, and we can take that leading role and ensure that at least we bring on board all the local and national qualification that we have to be able to have it, to be able to ensure that we have it in line with the industry and the academia aspect. So thank you very much. I think this is the contribution.
Thank you very much, Simon. And when you spoke about also going to the secondary school level, I think you spoke to Ms. Heppo's heart, because she made a comment saying that should we not, look in terms of curriculum even down to the secondary school level. So you've, Ms. Heppo, you've been answered.
Okay.
I'm going to just take the discussion further and bring in Reverend Charles, just to talk in terms of how do we then look at harmonizing this particular curriculum. Reverend Charles?
Actually, we are lucky that this discussion started a long time ago when ISCA was being formed. We started from a background career preparedness. And if you go to the website of ISCA, that has been highlighted very strongly. And we developed even the 14 steps that will go back to where we are talking about. Because career preparedness is the key. You prepare and you talk the language. But why? In Africa, it's not just one public procurement thing, no. In Africa, for us in East Africa, we are in the agenda 2030 when everybody should be at least looking like he's economical fit. We have the MSMEs programs, micro, small, and medium enterprises, so that people can invest, can grow. So that's another thing where supply chain management is about to be, and we want to go career preparedness. Kenya being a hub for East Africa, humanitarian supply chain is also key. And so we want people not to go there confused, but to know that supply chain is core-cutting. Then we have this industrialization, where we have the light industries coming up. We call them Juakali in my language. I can see people like Josephat guys are here to confirm that. So what we want is a harmonized, not harmonized in terms of preparing everybody to move to another region and understand. Public procurement is on the plate, but entrepreneurship, and we are talking about entrepreneurial supply chain systems, where you talk entrepreneurship, but where your supply chain in that. We saw the disruptive supply chains, and we want to see how prepared are we to deal with that. We are talking about supply chain planning. So on the table, a group of people in 2020 made a global survey, and it listed 21 universities, and they looked at the graduate program, and they found that the requirements of that profession, the pedagogy, the course emphasis were really missing. They are not matching. So they gave a scenario where East Africa is waiting to hear the story from America. So they say Africa should now start looking at themselves, because that's where the challenge is. Our language of MSCs or MSEs is not the language you speak in France. The French, they're talking about another language, but for us, we are talking about, we start from the grassroots and want to invest. We don't want to look for employment. But some places, they want employment. Other countries train people to be employed by the public sector. In Kenya, we don't have room for the public sector to employ everybody. So we need to harmonize this in such a way that the language here we want to speak about harmonization is career preparedness, supply chain management. And we have got, I'm sure that ISCA with the president is already thinking how best they can do that. And if you get a survey, just answer it. For me, I'm ready for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. We have been going through the questions in the chat, but I'd like to give an opportunity for anyone in the room who would like to ask a question. They can take themselves off the mic and ask the question.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, you can, Joseph.
Yeah, so I just want to make a comment back on the issue of recognition of supply chain management, and say that we may also need to go beyond the boardrooms and lobby the political class, because these things have to be made at the government policy level, so that at least even in while people are legislating about public procurement, you should also think that supply chain management is not just about public procurement, but it's about the economy at large. People have now started talking about supply chain because of COVID-19, and the politicians who are within the profession who are saying they don't know anything about supply chain should now realize, or should have learned some lessons about the importance of supply chain management. And if they look at exactly how and what the problems have been caused by the weaknesses in the supply chain, those problems are not unique to any specific profession. It was across the board. So, and a realization was seen that procurement, supply chain, storage, distribution, logistics were actually very, very critical in terms of making sure that goods, got from point A to point B. Yeah, so that's the comment I wanted to make. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you very much for sharing that with us. And yes, you definitely highlighting some, the importance and what we have seen. Thank you very much. I would like to take, before I go back to the questions in the chat, give an opportunity for anyone who'd like to make some comments or questions to the panelists. Okay, so in continuing with some of the comments in the chat, these two questions are related specific. Oh, sorry, Peterson, I see that your hand is up.
Yeah,
you can take your...
Thank you. I appreciated the presentations made by our colleagues over here. But as I appreciated that we need a standardized curriculum for example, regions. We say, for example, East Africa, because we might be sharing some, let me say, market needs. But for Africa, it might be a challenge. That is why we go for certification, which somehow, after universities address the unique issues from their markets or from their stakeholders, we go to the next level for the next level of certification. I want to ask my brother Oloo there. There is a case he was trying to say that there is a case in court. What is his position about that case? Because he comes from that he comes from Kenya, and what should be the best way forward? Because when there is a case in court and we are working towards the standardization and we want to get the best out of our professions, there is something that needs to be done, and I wanted to get his position regarding the case and moving forward. Thank you.
Good. Peterson, I think he's one of those people who are promoting supply chain management at the University of Nairobi. But the case we are talking about is a case of professional bodies, not just supply chain. And this case was, it was Kenya University Education Program, Commission, Kenya University, Commission of University Education, Q. So they were not happy that nobody would talk to them first because they don't understand, as we have been, also to promote and to let them understand. Because they are looking for, and so many universities in Kenya, so many, for something, nearly. And so each university trying to survive, trying to do this, if they introduce something, and then you say, don't do that, or you guide them, then the position of those people who are managing the universities becomes irrelevant. So for me, the case was hurriedly done, and because we don't have mechanism for mediations, which Kenya, we form many courts, a court of university harmonization. We didn't go through the quality assurances, KUNQA, we should have explored there first, then we go to other avenues. But for me, that case was not brought in good faith because the people who brought the case against the university did not have much time to do as such. But what we have agreed even now is the idea of talking together. But how? We must start from somewhere. We must start from somewhere in terms of forming a commission, forming an inquiry, whatever. So the role is between the professional bodies, and in fact they have a professional board association, if they have, I think so, which can now talk about them. Because if you talk about engineers, talk about project manager, talk about supply chain, their requirements is diverse. So you take one case of engineers going to court, then you want to also accuse supply chain management? No, then that's wrong. So the case is supposed to be handled properly, but I don't have competence to do that. If it came to supply chain management, then I know what to do.
Thank you very much for that comment. I'm also just taking note of the time, and it's actually we've gone over. So I'm going to give Tangeni the opportunity to ask the question, and I'll have to say that will be the last question for the panelists as I allow them to wrap up. Tangeni?
Thank you very much for the opportunity to, actually mine is a short comment when it's regarded to COVID-19. Like we know the history tell us, as even the presenters and a lot of scholars is also writing about it, that supply chain was not really a center of a focus even on the leaders. But it's an opportunity now that the COVID come and we had all those challenges of all kinds of goods and services that could not be received on time, and everybody was now speaking supply chain. I know one of presenters have seen it, but that is also one of opportunity that for those who are at the helm of the leaders of those professional organizations, they could have also leverage from that point of view that even COVID is gone, we should not let it go again. We have to continue sensitizing and letting our leaders at all levels know that supply chain still exists, even if we are not in pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In fact, I think that's an appropriate comment from the room to end with in terms of this discussion, to give us hope and make sure we keep the momentum. I'm going to ask the panelists if each of them could possibly just for 1 minute make some closing remarks before we then close for the afternoon. I'll start with yourself, Sarie, as I believe in ladies first. So I will start with you. 1 minute closing remarks.
Thank you, Dr. Nteta. So much has been said, and I struggle to actually add to that, but I would ask us to continue the conversation and rather find the commonalities instead of the differences, and let's work together. We are all Africans, and it's exciting times, and let's continue the journey. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, Sarie. Simon, 1 minute closing comment.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Tata. I think there's a wake-up call for all of us as professionals to continue driving the professionalization agenda regionally and then also on a local level. I think that together we can do more. Let's start from the regional point of view, and the local institution can fit into it. And together as Africans, we'll be able to do more. Let's continue to have our own. I think that we have over-relied on other professional, international professional qualifications, but I think that it has done its parts. The likes of SEPs, the likes of CELT and other professional bodies have done extremely well, but let's try and localize and chart a path for African region. And I think together we'll be able to move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Reverend Charles.
Thank you very much for giving us an opportunity to talk together. We have 3 things here which have been captured, which was we have an avenue that we can progress as African. At political scene, we have the African Union, where we can also send together our thoughts and they can protect us. We have also University Association of African Universities up there sitting in Addis Ababa, whom we can also address should there we have problems with the outreach. Number 3, we have the professional, recognition that we are striving for, and also harmonization. But this time we need an alliance. And it has been suggested that ISCA, having started it, let it continue. I know that it's our professional bodies sometimes get hit here and there because of political hiccups, because of economic hiccups. But now we are lucky that we can move and we can make this outreach and we can strategize. And among ourselves here are the practitioners, people who are in the academia, and the people who are aspiring to lead as upcoming professionals. So we are lucky. So let us move together, just like someone else said, and let us also build our status. And there we are. So the ball is with ISCA. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those three closing comments. I have seen a comment in the chat from Malack, who feels that there are some critical questions, valuable questions on the chat that needs to be responded to. So at this point, I'm going to ask the panelists' indulgence just to answer one, and it's actually directed for SIPS, I believe, to Sarie. If she could just answer the question so that Malack does not get upset with me as the host. And this is just related specifically towards SIPS. And in terms of, I'm going to try and bundle the question together because we do need to close. It's looking in terms of one, how aligned is SIPS to the SAQA curriculum? And also looking in terms of, does SIPS, sorry, I just lost the question. Does SIPS accept members based on their previous qualifications and work experience? Sarie, sorry to put you on the spot, maybe 2 sentences.
No, all good. Thank you for these questions. It's important to bring clarity and understanding. First question about why don't we recognize previous qualifications and work experience? We do. It's standard in the world towards professionalization that the pathways towards professionalization, there are different ones. You get academic, you get experiential, recognition of prior learning, and these requirements are clearly set out. It's in the prospectus of the SIPS website, and I'm happy to share that with you as well. You can email me directly. I'll send you the link in the website. Then you can see the different pathways. There's the corporate award, the applied learning programs as well that they do through the corporates. So yes, we do recognize, depending on what you want to achieve. But it is taken into consideration if you're pursuing achieving the MSIPS designation, and then you follow the management entry route pathway. So yes, I hope that clarifies it. About the qualifications of SAQA. So understand that SIPS qualifications are registered with Ofqual. It's the qualifications regulator of England. The Ofqual qualification framework has got 8 levels. Our NQF framework has got 10 levels. And so when you have your Ofqual official foreign qualification recognized by SAQA, and SAQA then evaluates it, they map it now against what they deem to be then equivalent to our NQF. So it's a bit tricky. You know, historically we had with the previous curriculum that we had that our professional level 6 diploma was recognized at an NQF 8 occupational qualification. With the new curriculum, and there have been changes in SAQA, they have also taken a different stance and now awarding NQF 7 occupational qualification equivalents. We have been in discussion with them to say, but we don't understand why, because the new curriculum is actually even, you know, of a higher level than the previous one. So we don't understand, because no standards were compromised. But it takes a whole new mapping, and we are in the process of that to submit it to them. They were quite open to that, and also confirmed that should they deem this then to be an equivalent to NQF 8, they will then be happy to proceed and reissue recognition of foreign qualifications to previous applicants who had only received a 7. Because by default, they only, it seems, with off-qual qualification, issue a NQF 7 equivalent to off-qual 6. But that is critical for me that we receive clarity on that, because there's absolutely no way the intention is to deceive anyone. This was just legacy things that I came aware of more than a year ago. So it's also a slow turning wheel. But if there's any direct inquiries, you're welcome to reach out to me. But SIPS qualifications, as they are officially regulated qualifications with Ofqual. And it's also a journey for us to help employers out there understand the value of foreign qualifications, that it's nothing less, worth less, and just insisting on an NQF qualification the whole time limits organizations of obtaining talent from other countries that are brilliant, because they're now insisting on this, this is not the same thing. So there's lots of work to be done. And also from a professional body side, we are working with the advocacy team with SAQA, professional body advocacy team, to say the public doesn't know the difference of a registered professional body and those who are not, because registered or recognized professional bodies have to adhere to very strict regulations in order to meet the criteria set out for them. And the public don't know the difference. And what's the value of a professional body? What's it in for me? So we're working with SAQA to also help those who are part of professional bodies, not only statutory. There's a handful of statutory professional bodies and more than 80 non-statutory professional bodies of advocating for elevating standards in whatever profession they are for. So it's almost it's a bigger picture than us, and also holding professional bodies accountable for what they are doing towards contribution of the profession. And in our context, definitely, it's good to challenge us. And I'll stop there. Thank you, Yanda.
Thank you very much, Sarie. Malack, I think you've been answered in terms of SIPS, but I will encourage you to please go to their website to get more detail in terms of the SIPS qualifications and how they are aligned. At this point, I'm really going to say this is the closing remarks, and I'd like to just take this opportunity to thank our 3 panelists for really sharing their wealth of experience in terms of professionalization from the 3 corners of the continent, and also just the commitment to keep the fire burning in terms of professionalization of SCM. Really, thank you very much. Thank you to a very patient audience who sat with us for the whole, it's actually been a 2-hour discussion. Really, thank you, and your continued support in terms of ISCA. I think our president at ISCA has heard the challenges that have been put there, that ISCA, the importance of ISCA in this space. I trust that he has also heard those challenges. And with that, I'd like to say to everybody, I trust you'll have a very good evening, and we will see you in a month's time at the next Game Changer series. Thank you very much and enjoy your evening.
All right, thank you, Doctor.
Bye.
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 Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you ever so much for the wonderful meeting, Doctor. And thanks to your panelists as well.
Thank you, Malack. I hope you are not upset with me that I didn't answer all your questions.
No, not at all. Not at all, Doctor.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I don't have a reason to.
Thank you.